Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Hey, how you doing? So this is my ugly sweater for this coming week. This is what I'll be wearing when we meet together on For Community. I got a new one for this season. Now, I don't want to call anybody out by name, but I'm telling you guys, I may start calling some people out by name. But there were at least two of you with your cameras off this past Sunday telling me that you had these awesome, ugly Christmas sweaters and boasting about how great they were, but you never let us see them. So this week, here we go. Here's my newest ugly Christmas sweater. I am the Grinch this week. Let me tell you just a little bit in way of introduction why I love these ugly Christmas sweaters. Because for me, I feel that there is so much relevance to them. Relevance? You say? You must be mad. There is no relevance to ugly Christmas sweaters. Okay, well, how about this? I wore one last Christmas while my kids were opening presents, just because I felt like it would be fun. It was silly. We laughed a little, but it kept me out of the serious mode. Kept me away from thinking about work. It kept me away from thinking about, all the harder dad stuff, like, having to make sure the kids are behaving, make sure I didn't spoil them too much on Christmas Day, and I totally always do. But it kept me in the fun guy mode. There's one day a year I get to really splurge on my kids, and I want to just sit back and I want to watch them be happy because of something I could do for them while I completely stay out of my serious mind mode. So I suppose that ugly Christmas sweaters are relevant to me because it helps me to stay engaged with my kids during one of those really important family moments on our calendar. What about you? What silly thing do you find totally relevant during Christmas? For me, it's ugly Christmas sweaters like this. What about you? What silly thing do you do during Christmas that's totally relevant for you? If you're watching with someone, please pause the video and talk about it just for a moment. About 2,100 years ago, and about 900 miles away from Bethlehem, lived some Persian priests. Not just any Persian priests, but a higher caste of priests known as the Magi. Not the lowly priests known as the magicians, higher ones. Magi were leading religious figures in their country, using their version of scientific methods, namely astrology and diplomacy and religion, which were really magical incantations in the work that they did. And they were relatively respected, at least in their own country. These were elite religious magicians and advisors. With their mix of influence from paganism and astrology and from the Old Testament, they had a clue about what was going on in the Jerusalem area. But the Magi were generally this higher elite form of priests who had some clout and could be sent as ambassadors, as diplomats to other regions. For me, these guys represent total irrelevance. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm not interested in paganism, not interested in astrology, not interested in magical incarnations at all. Totally irrelevant for me. However, I think we find these guys totally relevant to the Christmas story. This video is based on my interpretation of Matthew chapter 2, verses 9 through 11. In this text, we're going to see something about relevance and Christmas. Matthew chapter 2, verse 9 through 11. After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Here's the point I am going to try to make in this video, but remember, my point doesn't matter. What our discussion on Sunday is what matters. So my point that I'm making here is just as equal and powerful and relevant to whatever point you're going to make as we discuss together this Sunday on Zoom. Make Christmas relevant. Okay, that's sort of the point that I'm going to drive home. Now, I don't think I would have been a fan of the Magi. Not my country, not my faith, not real science, not for me. But in terms of being relevant in the moment, I think that these guys totally scored. I think they had a bigger clue than most of the others who were living in Bethlehem at that moment. They showed up with gifts that were needed for Jesus and his family. So I'm going to attempt to look at the wise men's part of the story, of the Christmas story, and encourage us to reflect on how relevant we're showing up to that Christmas moment as we celebrate the birth of Jesus. So first, I'm going to start with this question as we reflect on the Magi themselves. How will you focus on Jesus? That's the question that I'm going to be challenging you with as we look at the Magi. One of the things that I miss about being a pastor at a conventional church, I mean a church with a building where people come in every Sunday, I preach, we do music. One of the things I miss about that is I used to lead Christmas services. So on Christmas morning, I would show up to church, people would come, it would be a family time, 45 minutes tops. We'd keep all the family together, we'd sing a couple of carols, there would be treats there to eat, and I'd show up with Christmas presents for all of the kids. And I loved it because I felt it kept the focus on Jesus. And I really missed that. One thing, though, that my kids really love about me no longer being a pastor of a conventional church is that I no longer lead Christmas morning services. They hated waiting to open their presents. They hated going anywhere on Christmas morning. They loved staying at home in their jammies, just vibing, playing, relaxing, whatever. Open presents and just enjoying them. I really miss what I used to have as a Jesus focus, and they celebrate the fact that I'm missing that, and they don't in any way encourage me to change back to what I used to do. Okay, notice what the focus is in this passage here. Joseph is not mentioned. I mean, he plays a really significant role in this story, in the life of Jesus, in where they're living, in where their income is coming from. Nowhere in the narrative here. He's in other parts of the narrative, but not right here. Mary, she shows up, but she's not the focus, at least in this part of the narrative. She's present with Jesus, and that's pretty much all that we know. It's the child that gets all of the focus. The Magi traveled from far away. They didn't mention Joseph. They didn't give Mary much attention. The attention goes to Jesus, and they worshipped the child. I honestly don't know who they thought the child was, but they must have connected him to at least some form of deity, if not God himself. I don't know, but they worshipped Jesus, meaning that they felt that he was equal to God because they worshipped him. And of course, that was appropriate because Jesus is God. It really doesn't matter what our traditions or our habits or our schedules are. My question is about what we're doing to focus on Jesus, because we are really good at celebrating a cultural Christmas. I'm really good at celebrating a cultural Christmas. I love spending that one day a year just to splurge on my kids and see that I can bring joy to them for at least one day out of the year. You know, I'm really good at celebrating a cultural Christmas. Whatever you do to focus on God becoming a man is relevant. If you can fit that in your schedule, if I can fit that into my schedule, that is totally relevant for the celebration that we have, like right now in December. What really matters is that the relevance of the day comes from Jesus. Our focus on him, our focus on God himself becoming a man. Here's how the Magi focused on Jesus. Now, I have no desire to tell anybody what to do. You know, anyone watching my videos or shows up on Zoom on Sunday, y'all are quality enough to make your own good choices. So what I'm going to do is look at the gifts the Magi gave and see if we can glean any ideas for how we can keep a focus on Jesus over whatever things we're part of over Christmas, that Jesus doesn't get lost in everything else that's going on, because it's so easy as we celebrate our cultural Christmases. It's so easy for Jesus not to get the focus. So what can we do to give Jesus the focus like the Magi did? Well, here's how they did it according to their presence. First, they treated him as royalty, and that's what the gifts are. It's like a nation dipping into their royal treasury to find something valuable that would indicate they felt another sovereign was worthy. And of course, that's who these guys are, the Magi. They are diplomats. They're doing what it is they're supposed to be doing. They're the religious elite from where they are, the scientists, the astrology scientists from where they are, this diplomacy. So they have dipped into the royal treasures, and they are presenting gifts to a king, recognizing that they're in a weaker position, subservient to whoever they're giving the gifts to. That's what these guys are doing. This is recognition of someone who is a sovereign. So I wonder if there's something we can think of as a way to acknowledge Jesus as sovereign over us as individuals and over the entire world with whatever we're doing to celebrate Christmas. Whatever else we're doing as part of our Christmas traditions, I wonder what we can include in those moments to acknowledge that God came as a man so that our sovereign was present with us to love us and to forgive us. Whatever we do to recognize him as our sovereign is a good idea. Second, I want you to notice that the gifts were relevant. I mean, this is the whole part of the point of this video here, so let's talk about it here, relevancy. Gold is valuable. Its sale is probably what funded Jesus' early years, particularly as the family had to fund their trip to Egypt during persecution and then back again after the persecution was done. Frankincense, trickier for me to figure out, but it looks to me like this is part of the recipe for the only kind of incense allowed to be used in Jewish worship ceremonies. So again, pretty practical for them. They may not have been able to use it personally themselves, but they certainly could have been able to sell it, I would think. So we've got some financial leverage here and also some spiritual practicality here. Myrrh. Okay, well, not really practical at all. It's special for sure, but it looks like the only thing that the Jews really used this for was to help with dead bodies from smelling too bad. It was used for embalming. It was used to take away the stink. Not a Christmassy thing at all to talk about, to think about, so let's not dwell on it too much. I mean, the most obvious thing that stands out to me is the reflection about where Jesus is headed. Christmas and the cross are the bookends of Jesus' life and history. He came as a gift to the world, but considered so worthless that he was placed in a wooden box, an animal feed box, a manger. And then, although his life was a gift to the world, he was considered not only worthless, but despised and placed on a wooden cross. Okay, so that's myrrh. Prophetic of where his life was heading. Totally relevant to who Jesus was and the life that he was leading. So these wise men treated Jesus in highest regard as one that towers over them. And then they invited him into the world with practical gifts that helped him financially and spiritually to aid him in his mission to save the world through the cross and the resurrection and the incarnation. Okay, so how does this help us try to figure out how to use this Christmas, try to focus on Jesus somehow, and make it relevant to what Christmas is really all about, which is the celebration of Jesus' birthday. This Christmas, I wonder what we can do to find some time among all the other stuff that we've got planned to somehow aid in his mission. I mean, God's mission is to be made known as Jesus. I wonder what we can do this Christmas to make Jesus a little more known to the people around us. Okay, I think those are the two big ideas that are just jumping out to me as we try to stay relevant to what Christmas celebrations really are about. We've all got cool things that we've got to be a part of, and we're all loving those things. I'm loving my things. I love that I get to see the kids open the present. I love the fact that I'm the guy that cooks the turkey and the stuff. It's the one thing I can cook really okay without really ruining. No matter how many sermons I hear about focusing on the real meaning of Christmas, I am not going to stop giving presents to my kids. I'm not going to stop cooking turkey on Christmas Day for them while wearing an ugly Christmas sweater for the whole day. I love it. There's nothing wrong with it or with the way you spend Christmas Day either. So let's also remember, though, as we're enjoying, this wonderful moment that we have, let's remember to stay relevant to what the celebration is really focusing around. One day a year, we get to remember that God came to the world as a man because his purpose was to be made known as Jesus, and to be made known as Jesus to the entire world, so that we can all experience his forgiveness and his love by our faith in him. Okay, this is probably a great place to pause. So this Sunday, let's pick up that discussion over Zoom. We can read the entire story of the Magi if that's what you'd like to do, or just focus on this passage. Your call. Looking forward to connecting this Sunday. So that's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you also please ask for the link? Remember, we meet at 1:30 and 6 o'clock p.m. just for guys at 6 for community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I'll see you next time, and hopefully I'll see you this Sunday as you wear your ugly Christmas sweater on Zoom. See ya.